Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about this weekend's Coca Cola 600 at Charlotte, and I'm going to tell you why this year's Coke 600 at Charlotte could be the best one ever, or at least the best one that we're going to see in a very long time, because we have a lot of reasons pointing to that, and a lot of things leading up to this race that say it's going to be very entertaining and the best one we've seen in maybe a couple of decades. So let's go ahead and get right into it. First off, it's Memorial Day weekend. My favorite weekend of the year, obviously, because it's the biggest weekend in motorsports. You have the Monaco Grand Prix to start it off on Sunday morning. I believe that is F1's biggest race of the season. And then, of course, you have the big Indianapolis 500. You got NASCAR superstar Jimmy Johnson's going to be running in it. It'd be interesting to see how he does. But then we top it all off with the big Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. And I'm a NASCAR guy, so I'm not going to talk any more about Indy 500, right? I'm going to watch it, but I'm not going to talk about it. But there's no doubt that over the last, 5 to 10 years, the Coke 600 at Charlotte has lost a little bit of its excitement, its lush. You know, the Coke 600 has always been known as one of NASCAR's crown jewel events, one of the biggest races of the year, right underneath the Daytona 500. You know, you got the Southern 500, you got the Coke 600 at Charlotte, you had the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis. Those were like the big events of NASCAR season. And that hasn't changed for the most part, but there's definitely been a bit of a downfall. You know, attendance has obviously been down for every race, but for the Coke 600 especially. TV ratings have been down, but this year could be a bit better. And if you look at the last few Coca-Cola 600s, they really have not been must-see races. I mean, they're long. They're well over 4 hours long typically, and we've had over the last few years a few drivers blow everybody else out, which is good in a sense, because when you look back and see Truex's 2016 dominant performance, that's a great moment in NASCAR history, right? When you look at Kyle Busch's dominating performance in, I believe that was 2018. Kyle Busch led 377 laps in 2018, and Truex Jr. led 394 of 400 laps in 2016. Those are great moments to look at now. You know, they were a long time ago. Those guys blew the field out, but in that moment, while you were watching the race, and well, for me, the Kyle Busch one wasn't that bad, but in that moment when you were watching the race and you kind of knew who was going to get the win by lap 250 with still 2 hours to go in the race, that wasn't really the most exciting thing for fans in the stands, fans on TV, and whatnot. Now, those are great moments to look at now, but during that time, it wasn't the best moments. Another example is Kyle Larson essentially dominated the race last year in 2021, leading he only led 327 laps, but he essentially dominated the entire race. I believe he started first in that race. I think Kyle started first when he dominated, and Truex might have started first when he dominated in 2016. The only real good Charlotte 600 race that I can remember since I've been watching, a very entertaining Charlotte 600 race that I remember since I've been watching, has probably been 2019 when the 550 horsepower package was being first introduced, and there was a really good race, really good finish. I believe Truex won that race, but outside of that, the Charlotte 600, for me at least, since I've been watching, has been kind of dull, not very exciting. But we have a lot of reasons leading up to why this race is going to be great. First off, we have sold the race out, and I think when you have, I know there's been some seats taken out of Charlotte, quite a few seats taken out of Charlotte, but a sellout is still a sellout nonetheless. And that obviously adds excitement. When you have a full grandstand, you know, we're going to take the green flag of Charlotte. It's going to be a packed house. There's going to be upwards of 80 to 90,000 people there plus at the event, which is going to obviously make it very exciting. Then, of course, I know the Indy 500 is expected to have their biggest crowd since 2016 this year, which that's upwards of 300,000. It's going to be at the Indy 500. Then, of course, you're going to have another big event right after that at Charlotte, you know, upwards of 100,000 potentially. So we could have, you know, almost 500,000 people just attending motorsports in America this weekend. So a big weekend for motorsports, a huge W for all this. And like I said, you got the great weather rolling in. But like I said, the Charlotte did announce the sellout, but that's not it. That's not it. The racing at tracks like Charlotte, the intermediate tracks. Charlotte is an intermediate racetrack, mile-and-a-half, cookie-cutter style racetrack. The racing at those tracks this year have been absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best races we've seen this season have been at the cookie cutter mile and a half. Las Vegas is a perfect example of great racing. I think Alex Bowman won that race earlier this year. I go back to Kansas. Absolutely phenomenal race a couple of weeks ago at Kansas. The last points race was at Kansas, and that race was phenomenal, very entertaining. You can even go back to Fontana. Even though Fontana is a little bit bigger, that is still considered an intermediate 2-mile racetrack, and the racing there was phenomenal. These cars are very hard to drive. These are the hardest cars to drive that NASCAR has seen in a long time. In the intermediate racetracks, these mile-and-a-half racetracks like Charlotte are seeing some of the best racing in 10 years. I mean, the races are very entertaining at these racetracks, and this is some of the most entertaining mile-and-a-half intermediate style racing that I've seen since I've been watching live races. So it's very exciting, and I think that's going to continue going into Charlotte. Charlotte's one of those racetracks that's been kind of a good race, even with the strange rules and strange packages. But now with the next-gen car, this new car, I think the racing is going to be extremely exciting. This is going to be a race where you're going to have to get to the end. Previously, the last few years, there haven't really been too many mechanical failures. You're just full throttle the whole time. Mechanical failures and single car accidents completely went away over the last 3 years. Very few mechanical failures have taken place, and very few single car accidents have taken place over the last few years. You might have a flat tire or something, but this is literally going to be a race coming up where you're going to have to make it all 600 miles. If there's a driver leading in this race, that does not mean they're going to win whatsoever, even close to the end. The amount of tire failures and tire problems we've seen has added a level of uncertainty. I mean, just this last weekend in the All-Star race, Kyle Busch was leading, looked like he was going to blow everybody out in the All-Star race, has a flat tire, and then gets rammed into by Ross Chastain. That very well could happen this weekend or something similar. We're going to have tires is going to be a major concern. Single car wrecks. We're seeing drivers, the best caliber drivers in NASCAR, Kyle Larson, multiple times 2 weeks ago at Kansas and last week at Texas, have issues and go and slam up into the wall. Kyle Busch, single car wrecks in practice. I believe it's been a while since he's had a single car wreck. I believe it was Fontana. He had a couple of single car wrecks all by himself, just spins around. Brad Keselowski, single car accident every week. Some of the those are championship drivers. Truex Jr., single car wrecks. We're seeing some of the best drivers in NASCAR, champion drivers that have won plenty of races, that have won championships, spin out on their own, just driving around and just spin out on their own. No tire failures or anything, because it's so hard to drive this next-gen car. That adds another layer of uncertainty. That adds another layer of you have to make it 600 miles, because if you spin out on lap 100 of a 400-lap race, that's going to make the night a whole lot more difficult for you. And we could also see some comebacks. We could see drivers have problems early on like that, maybe some spins, some tire failures, and they have a long night to come back. So it should be a very entertaining Coca-Cola 600. I'm super excited for it. I think it's going to be great. I think it's finally an endurance race again. Going into this week, I'm looking at this as, oh my God, you're telling me that a lot of these drivers can't even make it to the end of a 400-mile race at Kansas or a 400-mile race at Las Vegas? How are they going to make it 600 miles at Charlotte? That adds that endurance, back into the Coke 600. So I think the Coke 600's lust, or its excitement, and its, majorality, I guess, I don't know if that's a word, is finally kind of coming back. There's a lot of excitement going into this race. I've seen some stuff like, save us from the Texas All-Star race, save us from Texas, Charlotte, and stuff like that on the internet. I think the excitement is back this weekend for Charlotte, and I hope that continues. I hope we have a great race, and going into next year, I hope fans are just as excited as they are this year. This is probably the most excited I've ever been for the Coke 600. This is one of NASCAR's biggest races of the year. This is a huge spectacle, and for it to be sold out, which is great. Like I said, I know they've taken out some seats, but for it to sell out and still have a big crowd obviously adds to the excitement. This is the third sellout, I believe, this year, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. So we'll take that for sure, and it should be exciting. So I hope you guys tune in. I will do a race review video right after the Coca-Cola 600. Tune in for that. I will obviously break down everything, hopefully tell you about how Kyle Busch got the win, and hopefully it is a great race, and I can't wait to break it down and explain everything that happened and talk about everything that happened with you guys on Sunday night. So leave a comment. Let me know if you think this Coke 600 this year is going to be great or not. There could be some reasons why it wouldn't if you look at Texas, but I think it should be pretty good. But let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know if you guys are excited for the Coke 600. And, of course, like and subscribe if you like the video. And that's it. That's all there is to talk about leading up to the big race on Sunday. And, of course, let's get rowdy.